What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today's video is actually going to be a little bit different than my usual content. Instead of doing some aftermarket performance or drift car stuff, I'm actually going to be replacing the radiator on my daily driver. So this is what I daily drive. It's a 2005 Chevy Colorado. And a few details about this car: I've got the 4-cylinder engine and I've got the manual transmission. So installation may vary depending on the specs of your vehicle. Basically, what's going on with this car is it's got a very small coolant leak. And it's kind of hard to show on camera, but if you zoom in right here, you can actually see a crack right there on the intake. So basically, it doesn't really leak on cool days, but on really hot days, when the pressure starts to build in the coolant system, it'll start to seep out. This is the radiator I ended up grabbing. I got a cheaper radiator from Rock Auto. Usually that's the cheapest place to get stuff if you don't mind waiting for shipping, but I was actually very surprised to see a Colorado option. So Colorado is a Japanese company, and I generally use their aftermarket radiators in a lot of my builds. I was surprised to see a factory option, especially for the Chevy Colorado of all things. So we got this from Rock Auto. It got shipped in. Looks to be in good condition. So the first thing we're gonna do is get this thing in the air and get the coolant drained. Okay, so the truck is in the air and we are ready to drain the coolant. Now, before you drain the coolant, first bit of advice I'm gonna give you is to remove the radiator cap. This kind of allows the coolant to drain out a little bit easier. So first issue I ran into is I was looking for the drain for this radiator. For example, we can take a look at it here on the coil rad. Now it's just a thumb screw, and then the coolant starts coming out of this port on the bottom. But for whatever reason, on this specific radiator, it looks like the provision is there for it, but for whatever reason, it's just all blocked off. So the next best thing to do, or I guess the most obvious solution, is to just pull the radiator, the lower radiator hose, and just let it all drain out. But in my experience, that can get really messy. So I'm actually just gonna drill a hole in it, because this radiator is 100% going to the trash after this, so I don't mind destroying it. All right. With the radiator being almost completely drained, you know, you'll never get 100% of it out of there. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the lower radiator hose, and then we're gonna get up top and start working on this fan shroud. All right, so with the hose clamp moved out of the way, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this radiator hose. Expect a little bit of coolant to come out. In this case, it looks like we drained it pretty well. So for now, I think we're done underneath the car. We're gonna go ahead and move up top and start working on removing this fan shroud. Taking a look at the radiator from up top, it looks like there's a couple points on the fan shroud that connect to a few lines. I've already removed this one here on the AC line. That's easy enough. Before we can start removing the radiator, we got to get the fan shroud out of the way. Now, it looks like the fan shroud is 2 pieces and it's held together by a couple clips down there. So I think it'll be as simple as just prying these clips up out of the way, separating the fan shroud, removing the fan shroud from the radiator, both the top and bottom piece, and then we can remove the upper radiator hose and start pulling this thing out. I'm going to use a small flathead screwdriver to remove this clip from the AC line. And then I'm going to use this pry bar to get in there and pop these clips off of the fan shroud. It's like there's 3 on each side. So just like below, go ahead and get this upper radiator hose off. There's this piece which needs to come out. You can then remove the lower portion of the fan shroud. Now we're going to be a lot more careful than this going in with these fan shrouds. So we don't want to bend the fins on our radiator. Next thing I'm going to do is remove this top bracket. Looks like it's going to be a 13 millimeter. You can actually see this bolt. There's 1 on each side, and it looks like we just need to remove the top bolts. Looks like it's a couple 10 millimeters. This is the perfect place for a ratcheting wrench. All right, now with the condenser separated from the radiator, there's actually a few tabs down at the bottom. So the condenser, in order to be fully separated, needs to actually come up and over a bit. Like I said, this might be easier if you remove the grill, but I'm pretty sure I can manage to go ahead and lift this condenser up carefully without bending any of the fins, hopefully, and push it back. Now with the condenser out of the way, I can kind of pull this side up and out of the way, and this side. And just like that, with a little bit of fumbling things around, we got the radiator out of the car. So with the old radiator out of the car, we got to go ahead and remove these side brackets. It looks to be 2 T30 bolts. There's one on this side and one on the other side. And you just push down and out, and you can kind of see how this clips in. Same thing on the other side. We're going to go ahead and pull that one. And installing the brackets onto the new radiator, we're going to be very careful not to bend any of these fins. Just like in reverse order, with the brackets attached to the new radiator, we're going to go ahead and very carefully lower this thing back in, being careful not to bend any of the fins. So there's 2 rubber bushings, one on each side. Basically, we got to make sure that these 2 bushings land in the 2 holes down there. There's one, and there's the other. Now, moving forward to the tricky part, we're going to go ahead and lift up on this condenser and do our best to try to slide it up and onto those little clips down there. There's one, and there's 2. So with the condenser back in place, we're going to put these 2 bolts back on. Okay, so now that the radiator is secured, everything is bolted in, we're going to go ahead and start putting in our lower fan shroud. Now we need to start with the lower fan shroud before we put anything else in. There's 2 holes at the bottom, and you just sort of very carefully slide it between the clutch fan and the radiator. Again, trying not to bend any of these fins. Okay. And finally, we fit the upper fan shroud. I'm gonna go ahead and start reinstalling these clips. 3 on this side, 4 on this side. And these things just sort of squeeze on from the looks of it. So I went ahead and put the lower radiator hose back on. Everything is connected now. Everything is together inside the engine bay. So we are pretty much on the last step here, and that is bleeding the system. There's a few different ways to go about this. The most common way is one of these like funnel setups, and it has different attachments for different vehicles in there. Now what I tend to use is this vacuum system. Now, unfortunately, I won't be able to show that on the video today. My coolant was a little bit dirtier than I expected, so I'm actually just gonna go to the store and grab some fresh coolant. But there's plenty of videos and information out there on how to bleed the system. It's actually really simple. It's not a huge deal at all. So that pretty much wraps up this video. I hope I managed to help a few of you guys out there get your Colorado sorted, and get it back on the road. If I did manage to help you out in any way, go ahead and leave a like, comment, or subscribe. Any one of those is helpful, maybe all three. As far as other stuff on the channel, I'm still waiting on some parts for the S14. Plus, I've been really busy with work, so I don't really get to work on it as often as I would like, but I promise I do have some good content on the way for that. I'm getting ready to start it up on the standalone computer very soon, and so I have a video in the works for you guys, as well as all the body parts are together. So as soon as I get it running, I'm gonna go ahead and get started on fitting up the body kit. So if you're into aftermarket stuff, if you're into performance or drifting or just Japanese cars in general, definitely check out my other videos, subscribe, stay tuned for more. And yeah, I guess that does it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching.